If you watch the news or follow social media, it's not uncommon to see details about how much tuition rates have risen and forecasts for future escalating costs. Now, not only can these numbers be downright terrifying, they're super depressing. But avoiding student loans and being able to graduate debt-free from college or university doesn't have to be a luxury reserved for the super rich. In this video, I'm going to show you the exact steps I took to graduate with no debt. Now, these simple tips will not only let you graduate debt-free, they'll turbocharge your finances on the path to becoming a multi-millionaire. And as an added bonus for watching the video until the very end, I'll share the tip that allowed me to go from a potentially debt-riddled dummy to a money rock star. What's up, everyone? My name is Matt Matheson. I'm a personal finance writer and school principal. I'm also the founder of Family Money School, and this channel is all about helping kids and the parents who love them become money rock stars. Growing up, my family was firmly entrenched in the middle class. My dad is a pastor, my mom is a nurse. For our family, money was not a limitless resource, and my parents always made decisions with finances in mind. When I graduated from high school and prepared to enter college, I knew that money would always be a factor in where I went and how I paid for it. But I went to college for 5 years and got 2 bachelor's degrees. In between, I studied in Europe and traveled. 1 year after graduating, I was totally debt-free. So, how'd I do it? Well, a combination of suave sophistication and charming personality. Yeah, right. How about hard work, frugality, some great fortune, and not trying to impress people I didn't care about? So let's dive in and look at how I graduated debt-free. First off, I lived at home. What? You lived where? At home? Like with your family? And your parents? And your siblings? Yes, yes, and yes. Now, I know this may not be possible for some people, but for many it is. About 80% of Americans live in urban centers. This means they're really close to colleges, technical schools, and community colleges that pepper these metro regions. But for the overwhelming majority of people, this close proximity to post-secondary education means that living at home may be a real possibility. For me, living at home worked great. Not having to live in residence or with roommates meant that I saved a boatload of cash. My parents charged me a small amount of rent, but then ended up giving it back to me as a gift when I graduated. It did mean, however, that I didn't get the full college experience. I didn't have to avoid my dorm room when my roommate and his girlfriend hung out. I didn't experience the raging dorm parties complete with drunken co-eds and the poor choices and regrets that go along with them. And I didn't experience the culinary delights of the campus meal plan. Now, if you're willing to forego those perks, then living at home can mean massive savings on your college experience, since room and board accounts for over 25% of the annual total bill. And if staying at home isn't an option, living with several roommates can give a similar level of savings. Yes, it may be a big sacrifice, but it can pay huge dividends when it comes to saving cash over the course of your degree. Now, in addition to living at home, I made another decision that's not really typical. I went to community college and I saved a ton of cash. Now, I live in a major urban center with about 1 million people. As a result, there were several options for me as far as where to attend school close by. Now, at the top of the list was the main university with around 40,000 students where almost everyone went. And then there was the local community college. Now, to be honest, I'd never really even considered going there till a frugally minded friend of mine asked if I wanted to check out the open house with him. Now, after sitting through the presentation, I was convinced I'd take my first 2 years at the community college and then transfer over to the university. Now, not only was there a transfer program in place with the university guaranteeing I'd get in after the 2 years, but the class sizes were way smaller, 100 students compared to like 400 or 500, and the tuition was about half as much. For comparison, a public 4-year college for in-state students is $9,970, and community college is around $3,400. So for me, it was a no-brainer, and I've never regretted my decision. Now, community college gets a bad rap, but I have to say it was awesome. It's something I'll be strongly encouraging my kids to consider as they get ready to plunge into that next step of their academic careers. For now, they're focused on multiplication and learning how to read, since they're 8 and 6. Now, one word of caution, before you enroll in a community college, check with the registrar of the school you're hoping to move to be sure that your credits will transfer. It's a simple step, and many schools have agreements in place with local community colleges already, but it's one you don't want to skip. Next up, I bought used textbooks. Now, after tuition and room and board, books are the next biggest cost you'll face in college. I was really fortunate to have my parents pay for my books, but many people don't have this help. I mean, with the average annual price tag ringing in at $1,250, anything you can do to reduce the cost of your books is money well saved. The best and most obvious thing you can do is to buy your books used. I was able to do this by hitting up the campus bookstore and searching for used copies. Problem with this is that used copies are often tough to find and you're not necessarily getting the best price. That's why using a site like Slugbooks can be really helpful. By compiling prices on textbooks into one convenient spot, Slugbooks helps students find the cheapest prices available. Not only can you find cheap textbooks to buy, you can rent them too. I mean, who knew? Just type in the school and the class and voila, the cheapest available textbook prices appear. They compare textbook prices between the largest and most trustworthy online, new, used, rental, and digital textbook sellers, including Amazon and Chegg, to give you the best price possible. Another money savings I enjoyed was that I didn't party. Now, my upbringing and heritage both nudged me towards only enjoying the most occasional of drinks while out with friends during my time in college. I'm not as frugal these days, but it still pains me to cough up the cash to pay the premium for a drink at a restaurant, and it doesn't happen often. It was even more rare when I was surviving on a pittance of a monthly income while in college. Now, it's estimated that 3% of the total cost of university is spent on alcohol, which is absolutely nuts. Now, maybe I'm tighter than bark to a tree, as my mom would say, or maybe I just like to invest my money in things that actually pay dividends in the future, and not the kind that come with a hangover and regret. I was also super intentional about making as much money as I could by working crappy jobs with high pay. Now, when I say I work crappy jobs, I mean that literally. While in school, I was an excretory technologist. Now, that's industry jargon for porta potty repairman. Now, it was my job to suck out the human waste from the porta potty tanks, fix any damage that had been done by our most courteous patrons, beer league softball players, concert goers, and racetrack fans, and clean the honey holes so that they could go out for the next event. But don't feel too sorry for me. After several months proving my worth, I was promoted to sanitary engineer. Now, I had a few other jobs that weren't as bad, but I generally looked for jobs that paid well. Now, this often meant these were positions that involved unpleasant and monotonous work. Taking the long view and knowing why I was enduring these awful jobs to save money to pay for my schooling helped me get through the many long days riding on the back of the garbage truck. Working these brutal jobs allowed me to make double the minimum wage. Now, adjusted for inflation today, that's close to $24 an hour. The bottom line, I was able to save a ton of cash by working crappy jobs. I also made sure I traveled super cheap. My first car was a 1989 Toyota Tercel. Ooh, bright red, hatchback. I paid $1,900 for that beauty. Wow, that car was a dream. On gas, and that's about it. It burned more oil than gas, which made it necessary to carry a huge jug of Quaker State in the trunk. Now, my second car was a 1985 Jetta diesel. It cost me around $5,000. Sunroof, complete with the manual crank, also great on fuel, and it didn't have the same oil habit as the Tercel. It was awesome. Above 5 degrees. Any colder than that and it wouldn't start. Now, living up north as I do, temperatures dipping that low is not uncommon. We even have a term for it when it gets that cold. Not summer. I can remember one particularly cold day, the door latch mechanisms freezing, and my doors refusing to stay closed. I'd slam them and they would pop right back open. My girlfriend had to ride in the back seat and hold the door shut while we sought the refuge of a heated garage at a car wash to let them thaw out. Now, when not rolling around in style in my own wheels, I took the 414, otherwise affectionately known as the bus. Now, it wasn't fancy, but it got me from A to B, and it didn't require periodic motor oil therapy or an extra set of hands to operate it, which were two huge perks. The point is, my rides during that period of my life were cheap. They weren't fancy or even nice, but I made the sacrifice to travel cheap in order to save my money to pay for school. Next up, I packed my lunch. With the average college charging around $4,500 per year for a meal plan, and many schools charging much more than that, this was an easy cost savings for me. And even if you skip the meal plan but buy your lunch every day, the costs add up. $10 a day for lunch, that's $50 a week and $200 a month. Going to school for 8 months leaves you with a total lunch bill of $1,600 per year. For me, bringing my lunch equaled instant savings, especially since I lived at home. But even if you live on your own and have to buy your own groceries, the savings from bringing your lunch can add up super quick. One huge money savings I found was because I went to a public local university, not an out-of-state or province, private one. Private universities are way more expensive than public ones, with 1 year costing over $38,000 compared to a public school at $10,000. And local schools are often cheaper than ones out of state or province. For the average American, the difference works out to an extra $15,000 a year. If you want to go to a private college, it'll cost you $25,000 more. And it's similar, though not as bad, in Canada. So the bottom line is, staying local and going public can save you huge money. Now, we're almost at the tip that helped me avoid $15,000 in student loans. But before we get there, the next thing I did was choose my friends wisely. At this point, you may be thinking that I'm a pretty lame guy. I haven't exactly painted you a compelling picture of what my life was like during those years. I worked with poop and garbage, never partied, went to a local public community college, drove terrible cars, and lived with my parents. Not exactly living La Vida Loca. But my life was actually awesome. Huge reason was that I had great friends. We become like the people we hang out with. So surrounding yourself with a group of friends who support your frugal lifestyle is critical to getting through college without student loans. The crew I rolled with in college were kids that were a lot like me. They were from middle-class homes where they had been taught both the value of a dollar and how to work hard. As a result, most of the things we did for fun didn't cost a ton of money. Not only that, but I didn't have the intense peer pressure that many students face to go on, exotic spring break vacations or out for expensive nights on the town. This critical principle is not just true for students, it holds true after graduation as well. In his often cited personal finance masterpiece, The Millionaire Next Door, author Thomas Stanley describes which professions are the most likely to have a high proportion of high net worth individuals. Now, you think they'd be doctors, lawyers, or business execs. You would, however, be wrong. While people in these professions often have high salaries, they don't usually have high net worths. One reason is that these careers require expensive advanced degrees, which can cost tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, not only that, but there are professional and cultural expectations that come with these jobs. Drive a nice car, own a big house, go on lots of expensive vacations throughout the year. I know my brother-in-law, a successful surgeon, definitely felt the pressure to go out and buy an expensive car after graduating from med school and officially becoming a doc. Rolling into a hospital in a used Honda Civic and parking next to your peers' Beamers and Audis can make a person feel as though they need to spend beyond their means to fit in. And this can lead to lower net worths and higher debt levels among these professionals than you might expect. No, the profession that had a large proportion of high net worth individuals was teachers. Wait, what? Teachers? Yes, teachers. But wait a second, you might be saying, they don't make that much money. Exactly. Because teaching is a profession where salaries are not crazy high, there is no peer pressure to try to project a certain image. Teachers don't have the pressure to buy expensive designer clothes, drive super flashy cars, or have their kids in private school. As a teacher myself, I roll into work every day in my hail-damaged Nissan Versa, and I wear it as a badge of honor. And as an added bonus, no one gives me a sideways look when I pull out my leftovers for lunch in the staff room. It's the perfect profession for finding frugal friends, and frugality is a key to graduating debt-free. Okay, here's the tip that saved me $15,000, but I have to warn you, it may be too extreme for some. What is it? I lived at home after I graduated. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen, and you thought I was lame before, but wait a second, hear me out. After having done 5 years of university education, I did 2 degrees at the same time, going to school in Europe for a semester and traveling, I graduated with about $15,000 in student loans. Now, my parents graciously agreed to let me live at home and to pay a small amount in rent, but it was basically free. During this time, I worked as a first-year teacher. I made barely anything, but I was laser focused and paid off my debt like a madman. I was so single-minded that I was able to have it wiped out in less than a year. Now, again, this may not be possible for everyone, but for me and my situation, it worked. and I'm thankful to my parents for helping me out in this way. Now, the bottom line is that to go to college debt-free and to build wealth, you need to control your spending, which is why in the next video, I'll show you how to stop spending on stupid stuff so that you'll actually have money to save. I'll see you there.